Welcome to Living the Smarter Science of Slim, where we provide a scientifically proven lifestyle for long-term health and fat loss by eating more and exercising less, but smarter.
Eat smarter, exercise smarter, live better. I am so ready for that.
Hey everyone, Jonathan Bailor back with another bonus Smarter Science of Slim podcast. Very, very excited about today's show because we have a woman with us, a registered dietitian who I think is just pointed in exactly the right direction. She goes so far as to call herself a Qualitarian, aka she is just looking at food quality. She's not trying to preach any dogma. She doesn't treat it like it's a religion. She just says, hey, down and let's just say, what are the highest quality foods we could be eating and how can we eat more of those, and in fact so many of those that we're too full for the other stuff. She's a registered dietitian. She's all over the media. You've seen her on Dr. Oz and all other kinds of mainstream media. She's got a wonderful new travel kit she's put together, and she is none other than Ashley Koff. Ashley, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Ashley, I forgot to mention too, in your long list of accomplishments, you are also a contributing editor at Prevention Magazine, correct?
I am, yeah. I've been with Natural Health Magazine for a couple of years and now Prevention, and I love it because prevention is all about what I'm all about. And then also the integrative approach, you know, it's not, as you were just saying, it's not saying like no medications, but it's really saying like let's see how we can best understand how the body works. And the other really fun part is that I get to collaborate with a lot of people that I've worked with over the years, you know, Dr. Andrew Weil and his team over at the integrative program in Arizona, Victoria Mazes and Tiarona Lowdog and Dr. Oz and Travis Stork. It's just such a fun group, you know, in terms of all of us kind of coming together. And I think the most exciting thing for your audience is that we all agree on nutrition across the board. We might have moments, but that's usually about our favorite sports team. We're actually really in agreement. Nutrition is pretty simple these days. It's, you know, it is that paying attention to what you put into your body is so critical today, even more so than in the past. But we know what the body needs, and we know the body needs to recognize what it's getting, not get too much of it, to get a range of macronutrients, to get most of our nutrients from plants. So we call that a plant-based diet. And when you accessorize with animal, you just have to learn, you know, what is better quality. So I'm really excited. I think this is an amazing time to be doing what I'm doing. And the only thing I might, or those that know me might, introduction is I try not to get preachy. I like to use humor, but I definitely often feel like I'm out there preaching the good word. But the good word is how important quality is, for sure.
Ashley, I think that you hit the nail on the head there because it's that quality piece that something you said that I just violently agree with is it seems like there's so much similarity here, right? There are these slight differences, maybe like it's all red, but there's slightly different hues of red. But sometimes it seems like people get a little bit tripped up on those nuances, which again, may not even be right or wrong. If I'm a 23-year-old female CrossFitter, I probably need to eat than if I'm a 65-year-old postmenopausal woman, right?
Well, it's super interesting that you would ask that. So I think that on the one hand, what is really making sense is to pay attention to life stage, you know. So, but I also know 63-year-old menopausal women who are doing CrossFit. So there could actually be more commonality there than, say, somebody who is not active or somebody who has maybe an autoimmune disease or other things. And so what's really interesting when we look about it, certainly there are variances in terms of what people need in their food consumption. And I like to point out to people that number one is never something that you get to achieve. It's not static. We don't get to do it, check it off of our list, and move on. It's something that we're always working on. But the other point, and the point that should let us exhale, is that health there's no perfection. There's no 100% right answer. But what there is a need to understand what your body needs at that time. So when you say, you know, a woman in her 60s who's menopausal and a 23-year-old who's a CrossFitter, depending on what they're going through on a physiologic level, they may actually be extremely similar. And when I wrote the book Mom Energy, I wrote it for women. The word mom wasn't I just had a 2-year-old and I'm 30. today's world where mom is defined from the moment you decide to have a child. It could even include having a dog mom. It could be you're a stepmother. You're deciding to take care of a bunch of kids during the day. There's so many different ways to define this, but it's about the idea of you're giving your energy out. And if we don't work on replenishing our energy, then we end up at a deficit. And so when we look at what somebody needs from a nutritional standpoint, we really need to have a snapshot of who they are in that moment. And too many of the, I used to work in advertising actually before I became a dietitian, and we used to have these, crazy demographic target audiences. So this cereal is for women 25 to 45, or this bar, we want it to reach women from 31 to 70, and we have these age ranges, and you might say like, okay, college educated, or you might say has a certain amount of money, or you might say, likes, is busy. Like these things are so not helpful from a nutritional assessment. And I still know companies are doing that today. And when I get involved with working with them from a consulting standpoint, I will turn around and come back to them and say, hold on a second. I was just talking to a company about this the other day, and I just said, look, to figure out what similarities and differences your audience will have from a physiologic level. And that is going to depend really on how they're spending their days, how their health actually is, but also their perception of their health. So the really important point, and especially if you're reading a magazine, watching a TV show, reading a book, and I've contributed in all of these spaces. But the really important thing to know is that those are just guidelines. Those are not personalized information. We can help you personalize. It's important to me. A lot of times the media gets a little frustrated with me because I won't give a one-size-fits-all answer. Or, in my book, I did a wanted you to do before you started to read about things, and recognize that there are different types or there are different issues, and you might fall into those at different, you might be different quote unquote people at different stages in your life, or even in a week. I might have a day where I'm super active, and I might have a day where I'm traveling, like these things. So there's so much, there's a really, really long-winded answer of getting at what I think is actually the most pivotal point in our health-nutrition relationship, or what I call nutrition for optimal health. And that is understanding that you have to know physiologically where you are in the moment, and you have to also have a sense of what are your perceptions of your health, or your questions I always ask people when they're coming in. They fill out a form for me, a pretty long form, and it asks a lot of questions about their health. What medications are you taking, et cetera. But I also ask what makes them laugh. I ask what makes them scared or nervous. And it's really interesting in that information. I do get, number one, I get great information. I find out, they're nervous because their mother or their friend just died of cancer, or they're nervous because their husband doesn't eat as well, or they're nervous that they're not being a good role model to their child. That's going to really impact their nutrition as much as where they are physiologically in the moment. And then the laughter part really helps, because if I see, somebody listing a bunch of those is what makes them laugh, unless they are DVRing them and watching them at 10 o'clock in the morning while they're working out, I know they're staying up too late. And then we start off, talking about sleep, or if they're struggling to figure out what makes them laugh, or, if they remind me what makes them laugh, and it's, we're able to integrate that into their health plan, then that's also really helpful. So a lot of answers for you on a very simple question, but I really do think you hit on the crux of the core nutrition issue, which is how do we judge what we actually need for nutrition for optimal health.
Ashley, and what you touched on there really, I think, takes that quality point to the next level, in the sense that we need the quality of what we're putting into our body. And correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like the quality of our output, or just the quality of our life, how we feel, is in many ways a great gauge for the quality of what we put in our mouths. And the reason I say that is because you made the good point that when you read a magazine, read a book, listen to a podcast, we provide guidelines. At the end of the day, it's been my experience that unless we really look at the quality of our life and the quality of how we feel, and use that as a very important input into that which is quality for us, we may always find ourselves conflicted, and we're looking somewhere other than within ourselves. What do you think?
Right. Yeah, I think it's really important. And, just in the same way that you would never go to, let's say, you would never go into your friend's medicine cabinet, I hope, and take their medication. You might say their prescription. So you might say, hey, isn't that funny? We're both taking the same medication. But you go to a physician to learn what the dosage is. And even if you were taking the exact same dosage, it may not have the same thing. I mean, I give my clients an example all the time. I was like, if you think that a medication hits an individual even at the same dose the same way, talk to my mother about Benadryl. My mother learned Benadryl knocked out my older brother and was a dream drug for for aches and pain, for the things that she needed to use it for him. And for me, it made me so hyper that it was, I was running around the room and climbing the walls, and it took one at a time. And she was like, okay, I just learned a huge lesson. Number one, I've got to find another medication for you. And number two, you just can't make that assumption. You can't read the back of it and say, hey, you guys are, both taking the right dose for your age. This should be okay for you. And I think that that's so critical, those insights. And intuitively, we know them, right? So it's just that sense of coming back to having a level of confidence. So exciting about the media, shows like yours, the space, the online space today, which is, while it can be dizzying, and I'll get to that in a moment, the upside is we really do have at our fingertips the ability to understand nutrition and be aware of this so that we can we can investigate things, we can ask questions, and we can work with our intuition. Now, what can happen is the availability of all this information can be incredibly dizzying or overwhelming. I like to remind people that I have chosen for this to be my profession. And what's interesting is I am often sometimes less concerned or less focused on nutrition than many of my patients or writers or people who are contacting me. I am interested in music, and I like to, read up about politics. I am obsessed with basketball. I have hobbies and things that I like to investigate. But for me, my career is nutrition. I do not need a population of nutrition experts, and the challenge is that our marketing endeavors, the fact that every single food product out there has a marketing agency behind it, we are in a way attempting, or at least almost setting the standard that you, if not a nutrition expert, at least close to. And, I want great teachers out there. I want people who are experts in construction. I want people who are experts in politics. I want people to be able to be experts and to eat the food that makes them feel good so that they perform and enjoy food, but not have to be nutrition experts. So my mission is actually really just to simplify nutrition again for everyone, to remind people that it is actually extremely simple. And the body is actually extremely simple. So the easiest part, we can put those two things together. When we give the body what it recognizes, and this is where my Qualitarian, the body what it recognizes, the body performs efficiently and effectively. It's brilliant that way. The irritation, the challenges, the inflammation presented by giving the body things, we can use the circle square analogy, or, we can use the wrong key for the lock, any of these. When the body gets frustrated like that, and certainly if it's happening on a regular basis, that's what confuses the body. That's what irritates it. That's what makes quote-unquote nutrition complicated. And that's something that I am staunchly opposed to. I really try to intervene, on the marketing side to make sure that messages are not communicated that way. That was why the Ashley Koff approved evaluation program about 5 years ago, and I've audited over 50,000 products at this point, a huge number of which are dietary supplements, which really nobody is auditing in this way. And what I do is I make sure that I want better quality products, so that begins with better quality, recognizable ingredients. And the second part is that I also look at not just where we're sourcing it from and is it better quality for that category of goods, but also is the marketing message that's being communicated appropriate? So, when a group of moms, I think they were a pair of moms, sent me their organic fruit snack, quote unquote, and the marketing was sometimes it can be really difficult. We know organic matters, and sometimes it can be really difficult to bring the fresh oranges to your kid's soccer game, but you want them to have organic fruit. here's our product. Well, our product that they were presenting to me for evaluation had the exact same ingredients. It was organic. It was not a fruit product. It was the exact same ingredients as many of the organic candies that I have approved on the market, the Yummy Earths and the Surf Sweets and a bunch of these companies. The challenge that I had was that this was not an appropriate marketing. And I told them, I said, I can't approve you for that. And recognize, but when we say candy, people think the wrong thing. They think that it should be on a infrequent occasion, or it shouldn't, and that sort of thing. I said, no, that's right. You're absolutely right. It's just you can't tell people that your product is fruit. That's my problem here. So I think that there's that marketing piece becomes really important on that. And if you go to my website, there are a bunch of free tools, one of which includes my nutrition plan. I've tried with this idea of keeping everything simple to communicate everything that you need to know about nutrition on one piece of paper. And it is there. It's called the nutrition plan, and it shows the 4 pillars of nutrition for optimal health. That's quality, quantity, nutrient balance, and frequency. So you will see that calories do not exist on there, but you bet quality, which means non-GMO and no artificial sweeteners, and yes, quantity, we do have to pay attention to it, is on there. And then showing what foods, in order to achieve nutrient balance, we have to know what is a carbohydrate, what's a protein, what's a healthy fat. And then I actually add a 4th food group, which are your non-starchy vegetables, to make sure that people recognize that they actually are a food group that we need to incorporate in at every eating occasion. We tend to focus on these macronutrients as just carbs and protein and fat, and the vegetables are and all of that information is there on one page. And that one page is all you need to know, whether you are a menopausal woman trying to figure out how to eat, 23-year-old CrossFitter, a newly pregnant, a newly nursing mom, a man trying to put on weight, a man trying to lose weight, etc. And obviously it needs to be, the goal is, as we were talking about personalized nutrition, the benefit of working with someone or figuring out, what your physiologic needs in the moment are is really important, but all of the information is there, as well as a link to the Ashley Koff approved list, as I was mentioning, of the 50,000 there, because not so many of them have actually made my list. So you'll only see the ones that are on there. And again, these are both free things, because it's really important for me that people can access this information without having the influence of either me being paid and or the influence of them having to pay for it.
And folks, that's Ashley Koff, KOFFRD.com. And Ashley, there was a few points you made that all kind of came together in my brain, and I want to get your thoughts on this. So you mentioned that we all shouldn't have to be professionals. We all shouldn't have to have PhDs simply to not get sick or to avoid obesity. You mentioned that when we do give our body that which it needs, aka actual food, high quality actual food, it behaves as it is intended to, which is to be disease-free and high energy. And it becomes complicated once you start veering off that path, just like if you were to try to prescribe medicine for yourself. That's pretty darn complicated, because you're trying to manipulate the body. You're not doing what is the natural course of things. And I haven't thought this through all the way, but I'm trying to think of another analogy. You gave a couple great ones, and that is, are these edible products, are these food products? You mentioned I looked at 50,000 products. You didn't say 50,000 foods. Are products a bit like lying to our body? Here's why I use the term lying, because if you lie in real life, things get complicated really quickly, because you have to remember what you said to this person, and if I lied here, now I have to lie again, and I have to do this to counteract that. Whereas the truth is just really simple. You just always tell the truth. It might not always be possible, but it is really simple. And could we say something similar about food, where the truth is whole, nutrient-dense foods that are found directly in nature, and as long as you live that truth, it will stay very simple. But once you start diddling with 100-calorie snack packs and drinking sodas, things that are happening that are lying to your body, and it gets really complicated to stay healthy when you're lying to your body. What do you think?
Right. Yeah, and it's not, I keep using the analogy, and it's kind of like, for how long will your car run efficiently. First, if you start using cheaper gas, like it will run. It will say, okay, this is gas, but it might cause buildup. You might have to take it into the shop more often, this kind of a thing. And now if you like stick a dirty sock in it, it doesn't run, or if you put, nail polish remover into your car, it doesn't run. And one could be like, well, but they're both like liquids that you can put in there. They both have a strong smell. They both light on fire. Like, doesn't matter. It just isn't the same thing. And, we're in this world right now with genetically engineered foods, and it's a really big one. I mean, how in the 90s our government just said, well, if a soybean looks like a soybean on the outside, it must be a soybean on the inside, regardless of genetic modification, is insanity to me, And the challenge with that is maybe both soybeans are fine in our bodies. I don't think so, but maybe they are, but we don't know. And the issue that we have is we have so many diseases. I mean, every day, this is the part that makes me so sad, but it also, I'm out there, like whether it's the activist or the preacher, I am out there talking about this because every single day I have people walking into my office in utter confusion. I have doctors calling me in utter confusion. How is it that a healthy 30-year-old went to bed on Friday, on a Monday morning, woke up, and any food she puts in her mouth makes her skin literally feel like it's lighting on fire? How is it that, I have people that have been healthy their whole lives and now they put food into their mouths and it causes their bellies to blow up in pain looking 5 months pregnant? How is it that we have, kids that literally construct, that I struggle, and I will work to the ends of the world to try to make it work, but I struggle to get them the nutrients that they need from actual food because they are so intolerant to so many different foods. That's the stuff where we know, these two things, these unknowns about what some of these chemicals or these, I put the whole class under chemistry lab projects. And I just like to, I love chemistry class. I thought chemistry lab projects, I almost blew up my lab. I almost blew up the kitchen. Like I did actually set the kitchen on fire when we were playing around with stuff. But, when that stuff happens, that is super. That doesn't belong in our body. What needs to go in our body is the stuff that our body recognizes. And the challenge that we have already today is that we have an aging soil, we have an aging planet, we have, some parts of our planet have been really well protected, but unfortunately, whether it's man-made or environmental, just natural disasters, there have been, unnatural influences, that, even despite protection have occurred in those places. And in other places, we've just done it wrong. We've farmed improperly. We haven't rotated properly on our land. We've put things that are the soil lose nutrients and water as opposed to retain it. And because of that, even when we're eating healthy, we aren't getting as much nutrition from our food as say our ancestors were. So that's like in the, in the best case scenario, I still have, like in the healthiest of my eaters and the healthiest of my clients, I still have them probably taking a multivitamin, multi-mineral, really emphasizing the minerals, maybe taking a supplement of essential fatty acids or, drizzling a hemp seed oil or a chia seed oil or that sort of thing, making sure that they're getting it in, having some sort of a prescription to your daily food consumption. And that bothers me. I wish that didn't happen. I have countless clients who come back from a week or two or a whole summer either in Europe or in a different part of the world, and they're like, I don't understand. I lost weight, I feel better, I look better, my energy is like all of these things, and I ate quote unquote worse than when I'm home. And, that is the answer of when our food quality has been as compromised as it is in the U.S., and our disease, unfortunately, and our health is as compromised as it is in the U.S. Those two things do go together. And people tell me, isn't there. You're right, but the science isn't there. We can't apply our legal system to our food system. So this idea of innocent until proven guilty cannot apply to things we're putting in or on our body. It just can't. We need to prove things safe, And if we don't have long-term safety studies about things, then we should not be putting them into our body, and certainly unwittingly. If you want to choose to put something into your body, that's you're going to pay the consequences for it. And that's a smoker, or that's someone who does drugs, or this sort of a thing. And usually there's even an awareness level there, and something that they're trying to work on, in terms of that this is, it does frustrate them on some level that they're putting something not healthy into their body. But we are beyond frustrated because we don't even know half of the stuff that's going into our body. That's really scary. And I've lost too many friends and clients and colleagues to diseases super young. And I know accidents happen, but these diseases and these debilitating diseases that challenge our modern medicine, they're not, I can't say they're 100% preventable, but they shouldn't be happening at the levels and rising with exponential increases annually, for sure.
And Ashley, I so appreciate how sensitive and heart-wrenching this issue can be, because what I also see is, you gave the analogy of putting nail polish or kerosene in your gas tank, and you might be able to drive your car around for a while. Like, we have this perception sometimes that health may operate linearly. I mean, people definitely think this with weight loss, right? Like, I'll lose 1 pound today, 1 pound tomorrow, and it's linear. Or that if I'm doing something wrong, I'll see it and I'll be able to stem the tide. The analogy I like to use is, imagine you have a glass of water sitting on a piece. So it's held up. If you ever played, like, Don't Break the Ice, it's a little game that kids sometimes play. So you have a piece of tissue paper and you have a glass of water sitting on top of it, and it's suspended over concrete. And over time, you drip little drops of water into that glass, and you drip little drops, and up until one point, everything's fine. But at some point, the weight of that cup becomes too great, and it rips through the tissue paper, it falls to the concrete, and it shatters. And at that point, the glass is shattered and the water is spilled. And right before that very last drop, there was really no indication that you were doing anything wrong. And one thing that especially I would encourage you to be sensitive to is, just because you're doing something and it's not doing anything bad right now, that's not a good reason to keep it up, because once something bad happens, once that tissue paper rips, once your pancreas breaks, once your hypothalamus becomes inflamed, once your gut bacteria becomes destroyed, it's not always too late, but you don't want to reach the breaking point, and it's not always linear. That's why you have to be proactive and look at food quality continuously. What do you think?
Yeah, I think, well, first of all, I think that your younger population listeners, if they're anything like the young people that I meet around the country, college campuses, I do a lot of talking and interact with, and through ESPNW and a lot of these, our younger population is actually more attuned to this today, I think, and not feeling like they can, quote-unquote, get away with stuff, et cetera, than when I was their age. And I think part of that reason is, unfortunately, they're unhealthy, or they know people who are unhealthy, or they see firsthand how, even at a young age, either their parents' debilitating health or they're experiencing health issues. I'm dealing with IBS and digestive issues, sort of the onset of them, and significant problems for women in their early 30s, and now I deal with it at 18, 19, 20. And I used to deal with diabetes and, in the 30s, 40s, 50s, and now I deal with it in the 6, 7, 8, 10, 15-year-olds, and we used to, our biggest concern was like not looking great with braces and acne, I think, when we were teens. And today I have ulcerative colitis, I have, celiac patients, I have the Crohn's disease in boys, especially. in that teen age range. A lot of kids, depression. I have kids who, so the issue is that I don't think anyone feels that they can rest on their laurels. I do think that, or it feels safe, I should say. I do think that a lot of people are confused, so I think that there's a lot of stuff that is being marketed and targeted, through the marketing to this age group. And, even the whole, like if we look at the whole Red Bull and this whole space, and now how they're marketing it and saying that, and whether it's Red Bull or 5 Hour Energy or any of these other ones, saying that, because they got their hand slapped or more severe, we actually much, caffeine as coffee. You still haven't resolved the problem, and that problem is that your product is negatively contributing to the health and healthy livelihood of these individuals, and your stance is to just correct your communications. Like, that's not, while it's important to start there, the question is, like, do we need you? And I'm so sorry, but we don't. I was watching TV last night, and Coca-Cola did this amazing campaign about childhood obesity and nutrition, and how, they kept saying, you didn't even know it was an ad for Coke. It just was talking about every calorie counts and how we need to consume less calories. But at the end of the and they're doing their effort, but at the end of the commercial, the point that they made is completely the wrong point. And that is that, so here at Coke, we're looking to reduce your caloric intake, to be more responsible. Okay, so you're reducing the portion size, but you have missed the biggest message that is out there today. And that message is not all calories are created equal. So thank you for reducing your portion size, but until you recognize that the quality of the calories, especially in your high fructose corn syrup that you're providing to is not a quality that the body finds acceptable for regular consumption, or I would say for any consumption, but I certainly will say for regular consumption, especially when we're building the foundation, especially when you are building the foundation of somebody's physical and mental health. This is unacceptable, then you realize that your commercial is completely wrong. What your commercial is trying to do is to get people to feel better about drinking smaller amounts of Coke. Well, okay, that could be a start, but at the end of the day, the quality of the Coke is still the problem. And so I think, we keep coming back to that point, which is, unless somebody recognizes, we teach our children at a young age that you need to put into your body what your body recognizes. So in the same way, just the way that you wouldn't, as you were saying, you would not build a roof made out of tissue paper in a climate where there is ever rain, right? Or extreme heat, because in any of those spaces, your tissue paper is going to not withstand the first puff of air or drop of rain. So we can't build foundations that are unequal or insecure or not strong enough, to support a healthy body. Otherwise, we are life of consistent repair. And that consistent repair we also can't afford, because we can't afford the medical on it. So it becomes this self-fulfilling or this vicious cycle, I would say, that is really frustrating. But I will not be a Debbie Downer. I always come back to the huge opportunity. Better quality is available and is increasingly available. I mean, I am so excited. I just did an article for Prevention Magazine that in the past couple of years I have said no to. Several magazines had approached me about doing, a roundup of what you can eat in fast food establishments around the country. And I was like, hold on. I will now did a road trip cross country, and I was able to, thank goodness for Starbucks, thank goodness for Chipotle, thank goodness for Panera. Like, I was able to find things that while I was driving cross country, and by the way, thank goodness for 7-Eleven, I could find things in every part of the country that my body will recognize. Now, granted, I had to close my eyes to a lot of stuff, and when you're hungry and you're tired or you're you're bored, any of these things, there's a lot of things that can factor in, to making it a harder choice. But economically and physiologically, which means nutritionally, I was able to make those choices. So I can do this. Like, this is not, gone are the days of the last 2 decades where I just said you have to bring your own everywhere.
Well, here, Ashley, I think it is obviously a hopeful time to be alive. There's certainly challenges, but there's much hope. And in fact, speaking of travel, in addition to just checking out your general website, which is ashleykoffrd.com, which has a bunch of great free resources, as Ashley's mentioned, you also, specific to travel, have put together an Ashley Koff approved travel kit, correct?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And I think that's, that was born out of, first, I've over 50,000 flying miles this year. I don't even know how many in cars and trains and cruise ships and these sorts of things through my work. And, it's really important to me. I don't care where I am. I want to feel good. And so, the biggest issue is that when we travel, especially if we're traveling for fun, but certainly also if we're traveling for work or for not such fun circumstances, we don't want to arrive feeling worse than when we got there. If you are coming home from a trip, it does not help to not feel great when you arrive. It can surely cast a shadow over an amazing trip, and vice versa. If you arrive somewhere not feeling great, and it takes you a day or two to recover, that into how exciting and fun your trip is. And in addition, because many, I work with quote unquote celebrities, and I say quote unquote because to me that's like, runs the gamut out there. Sure, it can be actors and actresses or heads of studios or musicians, but I also look at my sculptors that I've worked with, or my presidents of countries and kings of countries, and this sort of a thing. These individuals have said to me, when I get off the plane, I'm usually photographed. When I get off the plane, I'm usually, or sometimes even as I land, I'm a part of a meeting, or now because you can Skype and do all these other it's always important that I look good, and it's always important that I'm able to perform. And if I get fitted for a dress in Los Angeles and I arrive in New York and I can't fit into that dress because I'm bloated, or I look like I have back fat, or I am, arriving somewhere and I have to run into the bathroom before I can actually do my business meeting, any of these things that happen to all of us anyway, these were things that I had to take on. So I took to making personalized travel kits for a lot of my clients, and I would usually create them and then have their assistants fulfill them and then make sure that they were available either on the plane or they traveled with them, that sort of thing. And between the ones I would make for myself and make for others, I always stopped on my flights, with even the flight attendants. I'm often sharing now, like, here's a packet of this, here's a spritz of this, here, yes, I have my own towel, yes, I have my own fork, knife, and spoon, yes, I have this tea bag, yes, I have, all of these things, and they're asking me questions. And I wanted everybody to be able to have access to that. So at blissmo.com or on my website, you can have access to it. And it's a kit that you can then fill in terms of getting all of the products through, either Amazon or your Whole Foods or GNC or all of these stores afterwards. But it's a $65 value, and it's available at $20. So it's kind of a fun one to at least check out. And I like to tell people it's like having an appointment with me, too. That you get all of the reasons why I selected each product, and that's important too, because say you don't like the flavor I picked or the color of what I picked, or you just don't like the food I picked, at least you can find something that matches those nutritional requirements.
And certainly looked at through a lens of quality, which is excellent. So, Ashley, thank you so much for all that you do. She's a qualitarian. So that is absolutely excellent. Well, Ashley, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure. I so appreciate your passion and your positivity and your qualitarian nature. So thank you for all that you do and continue to do.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And I look forward and media. So I'm at Ashley Koff on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and Pinterest. So however you're digesting information these days, you can certainly find my information.
And certainly your digestion and many other things will be improved by digesting that information. To close with a lame pun. Her name is Ashley Koff. You can find out more about her at ashleykoffrd.com, and that's Koff. Ashley, thanks again. And listeners, thank you. And remember, this week and every week after, eat smarter, exercise smarter, and live better. Talk with you soon.
Wait, don't stop listening yet. If you like the podcast and if there's other ways we can help you, please join us in the Smarter Science of Slim support group, which is freely available at the Smarter Science of Slim website, smarterscienceofslim.com. There you'll find all kinds of free recipes and success stories and just all kinds of fun stuff, like how to help your kids go sane and just great community content.
And just one last thing before you go, if you wouldn't mind heading over to iTunes and up onto Amazon.com and leaving us a review, and then going over to Facebook and liking us, we would hugely appreciate it.